Hi, welcome to this week's GTA 5 o'clock. I'm Tim Weaver. I'm here with Dan Dawkins. Hello, Dan.
Good day to you.
I'm sure I don't need to introduce Dan, but just in case this is your first episode of GTA 5 o'clock, out at 5 o'clock every Wednesday. Well, most Wednesdays when I'm not stuck in snow and Dan's got the man flu. Dan is an expert, GTA expert. He predicted all these things that we're talking about now and have done over the past, 6 to 7 weeks now. And he predicted Los Santos and everything in it a year ago. So he is the man. He analyzes everything that Rockstar put out, every screenshot, every press release. And so there's only one place really to start this week, Dan, and that is the announcement of a delay, or is it a delay, to GTA 5?
Yes, it's a delay.
Well, it is a delay, but why I say is it a delay is because, and I don't want to say I was right, but I'm pretty sure that a few episodes ago I said that I expected it to be autumn. Only based on how Rockstar have treated their other games. You know, before now, we've always been invited up to have a sort of hands-off, eyes-on look at their game. Generally, I'd say about 5 to 6 months before it comes out, and we have had absolutely zero contact with GTA 5. Up until now, and it just struck me when I mentioned that, and it was probably just before Christmas, that by then, and certainly by now, we should have had a look at it, which is why, to me, the delay, in inverted commas, is not really that unexpected.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, Tim and myself have both got experience of looking after video game magazines, and whilst there's the public face of what happens with a Rockstar game, there's the face of what happens when we chat to the PRs and things, and what will often happen. For example, like when Max Payne was due last year in May time, as it came out, or April, May?
May, yeah.
You know, after Christmas, you always expect like a hands-on round where, you know, the Rockstar representatives will be arranging to see you, or talking broadly about, we'll probably see you sometime in Jan or Feb, then there'll be another round of this. You know, what was conspicuous was the silence. And like you said, Tim, and we discussed it in the office, was, you know, where's all these phone calls about going to see the game? Now, you know, we were thinking, well, is it they're just keeping it quiet, or is something afoot? Now, hey, something was afoot.
Yeah. I mean, we're not suggesting for a moment that we're so important that we have to be part of Rockstar's plans for the game, but it's just that they do normally give us a chance to sit in front of the game, certainly 5 months before release, which is why in December I thought it very, very unlikely that it would make spring. So it's not a huge surprise to us. Why, Dan, do we think it has been put back?
Well, I agree, to be honest with you, with what Rockstar have said officially, in that the game's being held back essentially for polish.
Yeah.
It's the biggest and most ambitious game, or open world game, that Rockstar have produced, and as a result, they just need more time to make it right. The bigger and more ambitious you make a game, the more time you need to balance it and polish it and iron out the bugs and get rid of graphical glitches to make sure missions connect properly. Given the fact that the game's, you know, multiple viewpoint, multiple characters, that's an awful lot of balancing. Given their ambitious plans for multiplayer, that's an even higher layer of balancing and getting things right. There's just a lot to get right. And I think, you know, given the stakes currently in the console market of if you release a game and it isn't right, the internet will latch onto you and smash you to pieces. Rockstar might be sitting on a game now that's like almost good enough to release, but in truth they know, well, we give it 6 months, it's more bulletproof, we'll get a better response, we'll still sell a similar amount, let's just do that.
And it's not, I mean, they don't need the delay will cost them money in terms of extra development time, but I'm sure they're almost certain that they'll claw that money back, as you rightly say. The September release is interesting in that it's probably, we don't know what Sony are going to talk about in a couple of weeks in New York when they unveil PS4, but it's interesting that it's before what we probably perceive to be the next gen launch of, you know, the next PlayStation, the next Xbox, which we assume is going to be sort of November time. So it's definitely not going to be a next gen game, or is it?
As I've said, on the very first GTA 5 o'clock, I predict that at some stage in GTA 5's life, it will go to the next generation. Now, I don't think necessarily that this delay is linked to that, I don't think it suddenly means that it will definitely come out on next gen. I do believe Rockstar, when they say we're just polishing it for the current gen for what we've announced for PS3 and 360, I fully believe that. But this doesn't hurt the theory of it coming out on next gen. And I think what's more likely, and this is what an analyst had come out and said at the time, and this is what Rockstar recently sort of debunked as a conspiracy theory, is there's an analyst from Cohen and Company, an analyst called Doug Kreutz, who said essentially, given that the game is now launching later in quarter 2, not quarter 1, there's slightly less time to recoup the development costs and the profits. So he says, we think the closer proximity of GTA 5 to the next cycle, as in the next console cycle, could impact on the lifetime sales of the title. Although he does add, we believe a title of GTA stature will sell regardless, of course. And he just says then essentially says there's more chance of it coming out on next gen because of this decision. I mean, my gut feeling is that the game will come out in September on PS3 and 360. The next generation consoles, or certainly one of them, will launch in November. I would be surprised if GTA 5 was there at launch, but I wouldn't be surprised if GTA 5 was there in March or spring next year, alongside the PC version and with an enhanced version of GTA 5. So whether it's with all the DLC packs included, whether it's some form of next generation console enhancement, whether it's a control scheme or something that exploits the connectivity or something along that line, that's what I'd expect to happen.
Didn't Dan Houser come out and say that he wasn't a massive fan of connectivity and that sort of stuff? Well, I can't remember. Maybe I just made that up. But I remember reading an interview with him where, because we were talking about this off air in the office about this sort of whether a next gen version of the game would follow next year, and we were chatting it as prep for this, and it's. I think what's more likely is like you say, that they bring out a next gen version and that has some form of, it's like an episode from Liberty City kind of feel to it. It has extra bits and bobs. I don't think they'll go to any great lengths to kind of use the kind of connectivity or whatever, say on the next Xbox, whatever Connect is on the next Xbox, just because it doesn't seem a very Rockstar thing. They've never really been into that whole scene.
Sorry, I don't want to mislead you. I don't think it's going to be like the Connect enhanced version of GTA 5. I don't believe that. When I mean connectivity, I mean like in terms of the online play and the social media function. I don't actually think like Connect will be a core function. I don't really think they'll go out of their way to use the new touchpad on the new PlayStation 4 pad that's being rumoured. I mean, they may do something token, but they're not going to obsess over it. That's not really what they're about. I think it's more about how it affects the multiplayer aspect and your ability to share your achievements with other people online. Now, this might be a good time to spin into something interesting in the press release where Rockstar explained the delay, and I thought this was an interesting focus and ties on stuff we've talked about in previous GTA 5 o'clocks, where in Rockstar's press release it re-describes the game, and it says, Los Santos, a sprawling sun-sunk metropolis full of self-help gurus, starlets and fading celebrities, once the envy of the Western world, now struggling to stay afloat in an era of economic uncertainty and cheap reality TV. Now it's interesting, because it's the first press release I've read that's overtly shifted the focus to kind of the faded Hollywood glamour side and the idea of celebrity, what it is to be a celebrity, and almost the rise of like the YouTube generation and cheap reality TV, and everyone wants to be a star. As we previously noted on GTA 5 o'clock, there's a big sense of surveillance, there's cameras everywhere, there's the iFruit phone. As we all know in the real world, people are constantly filming themselves, they're tweeting, they're on Facebook. Everyone's building a personal brand and like a little mini universe of themselves. And this is, not in danger of taking down the Hollywood system, but it's affecting the very nature of celebrity. Now, Rockstar are very prescient, they're very satirical. I'm surely this is a culture they must be aware of, and they must be aware of how this must interrelate with the potential of their own game. Now, there's a second part that was on the Rockstar Newswire where they talked about things to look forward to in GTA 5. and one of them was, this is the words they use, a brand new and ambitious approach to open world multiplayer. Now, again, I'm joining the dots on this, but I think it would be fascinating if the culture of the multiplayer was all about performing activities to boost your rep and your cred, or maybe effectively your YouTube views, to become the internet's biggest virtual GTA 5 celebrity. Now, I mean, it might all feed to some kind of GTA 5 version of YouTube, or something like that, or some measure or rank of your virtual celebrity. I think that would be a fascinating, persistent way to rate the GTA 5 universe.
That's interesting, because obviously the like you say, we saw a version of the iFruit phone, and we know that the internet is going to play a big part in game in the actual game itself. So, and you mentioned in previous episodes of this show that about the surveillance kind of side of things, and that mention of reality TV almost seems to fit too snugly into your theory that there might actually be something in that.
So yeah, I mean, again, it's purely speculation. I must stress, I don't know anything. I just think it's a glaring opportunity to do something with it. And looking further ahead, and again, I don't want to say these two are necessarily connected. PlayStation 4, which is potentially due to be announced on February the 20th, the hot rumour coming from places like Edge Magazine and various other sources is that the new pad has a button on it called the share button. And the idea is that your PlayStation is constantly recording the last 15 minutes of gameplay. So at any time, you can press the share button and share clips of video of what you've just played. Now, this is maybe like a feature set ahead of where we are currently with PS3 and 360, but Sony are clearly thinking the same way. They think the world is about making a celebrity of yourself by sharing your exploits in games. Now, I wonder if Rockstar, through a different mechanic, will beat them to the punch.
So, just looping back round to what we were talking about just now about next gen, I don't want to labour the point too much because we don't know for certain it's going to come out on next gen, but as far as I'm aware, Dan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rockstar haven't announced any exclusive DLC with either format holder yet, have they?
No.
Now that's quite unusual, because we know that GTA 4 was the first two episodes of DLC were exclusive to 360 and formed a large part of the episodes of Liberty City that came out eventually. So that's why I wonder whether they might have maybe. I mean, do you think they're likely to do that again, or do you think that was just a kind of one-off? The only reason I ask is because it seems like a good opportunity next year to kind of package it all up, like we were saying earlier. I
think logically that sounds like it's owning in on what could happen, because given the historical precedent of Microsoft, I guess paying an awful lot of money to secure exclusive DLC for GTA 4, announcing that fact early as a big reason to buy the Xbox version over the PS3 version. Now, if history was to repeat itself, they could release the game on PS3 and 360 and all the DLC at the same time and everyone's happy, but they could potentially do a deal on the next gen.
Yeah. So
whether next gen DLC is exclusive or whether it's just exclusive, entirely across both platforms for one holder, I don't know. But I think that's a really interesting point, and I think that it would definitely, given that if the next generation Xbox and PS4 come at the same time, they're all looking for an advantage over the other, and if one of them could say, we are the home of the most complete version of GTA 5.
Yeah.
That's an impressive selling point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting.
So, run us through some of the responses that Rockstar have made to people who have trailed a few conspiracy theories. And I mean, Rockstar were very vociferous in their explanation of why exactly this delay had come about. If indeed it, it was a delay, because they basically referred to it in as many words as a delay. Yeah. So let's call it what it is, a delay.
Well, basically, I think that the major piece of speculation was this Cohen and Company analyst who said, essentially thinks this is a nod to it being more likely for next gen. Now, Rockstar don't explicitly say this is the conspiracy theory they're debunking, But what they did say was, to those of you saying or seeing various conspiracy theories about some ulterior motive for this delay, as in, next gen possibly, he says, rest assured they're all nonsense. Literally, the only reason we've delayed the release is because we want the game to be as good as it can be, or be as good as it needs to be. And for those of you asking about the official box art, that'll be coming out later as well. But, I think Rockstar are, like we say, just going out of their way to say, we're just polishing the game and that's it, and stop reading stuff into it. And hey, it's people like you and I who whip up the flames of speculation. And we're quite open about it. It is purely speculation.
Yeah.
But logically, there's a sense to it. And, I really would be surprised if at some stage GTA 5 doesn't appear on a next generation system. But the key point to make is, I do think it hasn't been delayed purely for that reason.
Yeah. Okay. Have you got anything else to add there, Dan? Or I thought we could move on maybe to some reader questions, unless you've got anything to add to that.
No, I think that's me.
Okay. So, a couple of you have asked this week about does the delay mean that it's on the next gen consoles. I think we've answered that. Killer, the brilliantly called title Killer 10128 says, hey guys, I wanted to get your take on how you think your life in game would be affected. To be more clear, if you are able to interchange between the three characters during missions, and one of the characters you are playing as dies during the mission, would that affect the rest of the campaign story, or would you probably have to replay the mission again? That's a great question.
So what if one of the characters dies?
Yeah, if you're playing, I think what he means is if you're playing the mission and you're playing as Franklin, and Franklin careers off his motorbike and dies in the mission, do you think that will... I mean, he's not going to die permanently, because otherwise the story doesn't work, is one response to that. But do you think, let's extend that, do you think that'll mean it'll automatically flip to another character and you'll just carry on playing, or do you think you'll have to replay that mission? And do you think dying in a mission will have any wider consequences in the game?
I think that from a game design perspective, you've got to effectively end the mission and make it start again, because unless you're going to make a decision as Rockstar from the very start of the game, so for example, let's imagine they allowed the mission to continue with one character dead. When that mission ends, that character has to remain permanently dead for the remaining, say, 50 hours of the game.
That's not going to happen.
So they're not going to write off an enormous chunk of an intricately plotted game with multiple viewpoints when there aren't multiple viewpoints because one or two of them have died. So I think almost certainly if you get one of the characters killed during a mission, all of them die. As in you've got to start again.
Yeah.
Now, whether later in the game there might be branch points, like similar to a Heavy Rain or The Walking Dead, where characters can die, but they set a rough time parameter for when that will be in scale of the larger plot. Maybe so, but they're certainly not about to kill off Michael or Franklin or in the first hour. Hey, maybe they are, and it's the biggest turnaround in the history of video games, but I don't see any of them being the version of like Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea. Michael's not going to walk on and get hit by a nuclear rocket in the first scene, and then Raiden's the real hero.
Although, I mean, don't write off the possibility of these characters getting it at some point, because Rockstar have a long and illustrious history of killing off their main characters. So
yeah, I agree. I think the chance of one of them biting the bullet at some stage is possible, if not probable.
Yeah. So Man on the Moon 1110 says, did Rockstar say the AI pedestrians will have a point or places to go? Like, will the pedestrians go to work, drive to fast food places, go home, then do activities and things like that?
Yes, as discussed on previous GTA 5 o'clocks, the example Rockstar used in the Game Informer article was of people in kind of the more working class districts of Los Santos. You'll see them in the morning waiting for a bus, and then if you go in the afternoon to the more affluent Rockford Hills area, you might see the same people working in the gardens of a mansion effectively in Beverly Hills. So people will apparently have their own miniature lives they'll go about and patterns they'll follow. How many of us are going to trail people 24/7 to check this? I mean, I will, because I'm like that.
Yeah.
But I don't really know if that's going to be the case. But again, that's a fascinating area of AI, and wow, that could really run and be very complex.
Okay, a couple more questions then. First, we touched on this in a previous GTA 5 o'clock, but I thought it was interesting to bring it up this time because it kind of ties into what you were talking about, Dan, about surveillance and stuff earlier in the show. Andrew Burr says, what about the blimp in the background with the two planes? Do you think you will be able to get in it?
All I can say about the blimp is it's in a suspiciously high number of shots.
Yeah.
And either it's there as a reference point for conspiracy theorists and evidence gatherers like ourselves to act as a kind of, focus on the horizon so you could use it as a reference point to put shots around it, or, as mentioned, it's going to have a significance, and whether that would be, if it's an object in the air and it's got a capsule where people can go in, it's probable you'll be able to go in it and probable you'll be able to fly it. Whether it acts in some other mechanism as like a surveillance thing over Los Santos, I don't know, it's speculative, but it would seem ridiculous to put it in there and in so many shots if its function is purely cosmetic.
It's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility that if we are to assume that there is this kind of surveillance, reality TV, YouTube kind of vibe to the game, that maybe in multiplayer the blimp is filming multiplayer games in a sort of sort of Halo style-y, so you can track exactly what's been done and who's done what and how many kills and stuff.
I like the idea of a blimp cam, you could spin to and see what's going on the floor and stuff. That'd be really exciting. So it's speculation, but I think it's interesting.
Okay, last question. Owner Hot Wheel, and I know you've got some interesting analysis of this, Dan, asks, will GTA 5 come out on PC?
Oh, well, yeah, this is interesting. Well, I've always
we kind of touched on it just now, the PC version, but we ended up talking more about the next gen, and off air we had an interesting discussion about this. So shoot.
Well, I've said it would because essentially there was a GTA 4 PC version that came out 6 months later that added the replay editor and did a few things differently, obviously slightly higher upscaled. Now, I thought, again, because the next generation systems are essentially PCs, they'll bring them out in the next generation systems and the PC and develop it all side by side. And that's actually a trend we're going to see with games from publishers like Electronic Arts and Ubisoft, who I'm sure will produce a lot of games. They'll essentially repackage their PC versions of games for next generation systems. So I think Rockstar will be similar. But having dug into some figures, there's actually evidence that suggests that financially it isn't that important that Rockstar release a PC version. Because for GTA 4, if you look at its lifetime sales across all formats, the game came out in 2008 and it's now Jan 2013. Now the estimated sale currently of GTA 4, Rockstar's official line is something like 22 million, let's say top scale 24 million copies sold. Huge number of copies. But I've been on other places to track down by format what each things have sold. Now, approximately, Xbox has sold about 10 million copies. PlayStation's sold 9.6 to 10 million copies. But PC has only sold 700,000 copies. So as a percentage of the total sale, the PC version is only worth 3.45% of the total sale. So it's 97% of the money Rockstar make comes from consoles, only 3% from PC. Now it's almost at the scale of being worth ignoring if the development costs of creating that version were too high. Now you can look at that two ways. One is that they just won't do a PC version and that's the end of it, or you can look at it in the way of, well, if they're doing the PC version, they're sure as damn it going to do next gen console versions because they need to maximise the outlay for researching a higher res version with various new functions.
That genuinely surprised me when you said that in the office upstairs just before we recorded this. I mean, only 3% of the sales on PC, and yet there seems to be quite a vocal kind of community asking for the PC version, which is why I assumed the PC would be so much bigger. And also over the past year and a half especially, we've seen so many great GTA 4 mods that it almost feels like people are on the PC version the whole time.
Well, I think again it's because of the scale of the numbers relative to what other games sell. It's easy to undervalue it as a percentage, but you're still talking about globally 700,000 PC gamers. You know, it could be up to 1 million, say 1 million PC gamers who own GTA 4. That's a lot of people. And there's a lot of other games that would be pleased to sell 1 million copies on all formats.
Yeah.
So it's just that in the scale of GTA's overall reach, that's a small proportion, but as an actual number, 1 million isn't to be sniffed at. And, you know, again, PC gamers are by their nature quite dedicated, quite active. There's that really, not vibrant, but there's the modding scene for GTA 4 with the ice mods that might form the nucleus of a future episode. That's really interesting, and I just think those people are very engaged and very vocal.
So do you think there'll be a PC version then?
Yeah, because I think there'll be a next-gen version, and I think it makes sense to tie them all together, given that the next-gen consoles are essentially PCs. All I would say was I've surprised myself with the relative financial contribution of what the PC version could mean.
Okay, so that's this week's GTA 5 o'clock. A bit of a mixed bag of stuff. Lots to talk about this week, but lots of small stuff to talk about. We hope you enjoyed it, though. Thanks for your questions. Do keep them coming. We get so many that we that we try to answer as many as we can in the time we have available. But please, put your questions in the comments. Let us know what you think of the show, what areas you want us to explore in future episodes. Brilliantly, now the game's been delayed, there'll be even more episodes of GTA 5 o'clock where we get to analyse one screenshot over the course of half an hour. But it's, you know, we jest. It's been the response to the shows have been great. So thank you. Keep those comments coming, and we'll see you again next time.
Yeah, see you next week.